Hello. So this is a demonstration about our next set of compositional strategies. The file that I'm going to be using can actually be found in the Unit 3 lectures area under Unit 3 Movement and Change Demo AI. So if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and take a moment, pause the video, download that file. It's an AI file, and open it up in Illustrator. So the next set of compositional strategies that we're going to discuss will be movement, change, order, rhythm, spiral, and radial. So if you take a look at the directions, you'll have to make choices. So we're going to do movement plus change, order, rhythm, and spiral or radial. So you have order with rhythm, movement and change, and spiral with radial. So spiral or radial. So definitely take a look at the directions, but I did want to show you all of these so you can see. So if you look at my file, I have examples of each one of these compositional styles, and I'm going to go through this video to show you how I did each one of these. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first one on the list, which is movement. So with movement, you just want to really pay attention to tracking. So if you take a look at my file here, what I have is I have used the template. The template is on layer, the first layer that I have, layer 1. So there's the template. When I'm working, I lock the template so nothing happens to the template, and I can use clipping masks on the next layer without it impacting the border that's around the actual piece. So I created a second layer that I would work on, and then I locked the first layer. So for movement, you want to think about using the directional axis lines. So the diagonal lines really speak to concepts and ideas of movement. So I'm using very basic shapes. My expectation is that the shapes and lines that you create on your work will be a little bit more exciting. But for the sake of the demo, I'm just using circles as my unifying form, my unifying space. So what I've done on the first one is I've created 3 circles. If I hold down Shift on my keyboard, I'm using the shape tool. Yours might look like this and have a rectangle first. If you just click and hold, you can open it up and find other shapes to use. If I hold down Shift, I get a perfect circle. I'm going to move over to the selection tool and just move it so it looks like it's in the same space as the other one. So I'm just moving these, and I'm going back and forth between the axis lines. So I'm counting on tracking to give me the sense of movement. Another thing I want to do to this is to add a unifying line to it. You don't have to do this, but it just helps reinforce the movement that I want to articulate between my pieces. I then just go in, select all 3 of my shapes, and I changed it to have a solid fill by just dragging this black stroke into the space. And there's my movement. I want to make sure I use a clipping mask over the top. So I'm just going to make a rectangle that fits over the top. Go back to my selection tool, grab everything, and then Object, clipping mask, make. You can also find clipping mask in your quick actions. So what I'm doing is I'm using the diagonal axis and going back and forth, touching each one of these different axes, at least 3 of them, so that the viewer will track through the piece. I'm reminding the viewer where to look by putting a unifying line between the 3 shapes. Movement. For change, what's important for change is that you set up the norm and then make changes to the norm. So I'm still working with the circle, and I'm setting up pairs so that there's enough information for the viewer to recognize that these are repeated forms. I'm going to select both of them, hold down Option, and I'm going to incorporate some of the ideas that were in the movement composition that I just made as well, and try to also add it here. Now for this one, I want to talk about change. So what I'm going to do is add some areas or focal points within the shapes that make it look like there's a transition, or one shape is similar, but some change has been made. If I select the shape tool and I hit D on my keyboard, I get a default circle, and I want it to appear that there's a cutout. So I'm going to jump into the Pathfinder tool, which for me is here. If you don't see it, you can go Window and Pathfinder. And when you do that, it's going to pop up the Pathfinder window, and you can just tear it off and have it ready to go. So I'm going to just work with, I want to minus the front of this shape. So I'm going to find the tool that says minus front. And now I have a space that's here. I want to repeat that again, holding down Shift to get a perfect circle. I'm going to hit D default just to make sure I can see what I'm working on. Holding down Shift, I'm going to select both. And again, I want to minus the front. So I find the tab that says minus front. And then now I have a cutout space in between there. For this next one, I'm actually going to duplicate. And instead of, and I'll show you duplicate, so now I have two circles, I'm going to use a different Pathfinder tool for this one. I'm actually going to select divide. So let me make it as similar to the other one. I'm going to select both, holding down Shift, and I'm going to divide. Now I have three different shapes. I need to ungroup them, so I can go to Object, Ungroup. And now I can select that middle space, that middle area, and just use it. Now for the one I created, I made it a little bit smaller so there would be a little focal point that was also asymmetrical, just to add a little more movement and compositional information. So now I have one that's changed. So this one, I'm establishing that these are the circles that are part of the composition, and that I'm doing not once, twice, but 3 times a change in the shapes. If I do the same change every time, it may give the appearance of a pattern, but I just want it to be about difference and change. I can further emphasize that change as I've done here. I've just given it a white fill and a black stroke, just again, echoing that concept of change. So let's talk about order. So for movement and change, what I've been relying on, a command minus sign to zoom out, is tracking. So the tracking for the movement and the change that I've established are the best tools for me to organize the composition, especially for movement, how I want folks to move through the actual image. For change, I'm also using the tracking, assuming that folks are going to read top to bottom, left to right. And again, that's culturally specific, so it could be different in another culture. So I just made sure that from right bottom to top, I'm repeating this movement that I have here, but I'm changing each one just a little bit, not once, not twice, but 3 times. There's something magical about repeating things 3 times, where people are able to see it once, remember that they see it twice, and then understand it on the 3rd time. So let's talk about order. Order relies on the grid. So again, I'm going to use the circle. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to make that circle look like the other circles that I have here. Again, thinking about ideas like continuity. I've made a shape using the Shift key. I'm going to holding down Shift to keep it in a straight line, and Option to repeat it. So holding down Shift and Option and release. Now, if the next step I do without clicking is Command D, it'll repeat both of those. I'm going to rubber band select all of this, holding down shift to constrain proportions. I'm going to leave a little space on all the sides so it's really clear that this is a pattern. And then I want to hold down shift and option again, release, and command D to repeat those forms. Okay, to repeat those forms. I'm going to rubber band select everything, holding down. I'm releasing shift so I can have a little bit of irregularity and so that it fits. So now I have a grid of figures within a space, order. Okay, and it could be any shapes. I'm using circles, but you can put in collections of lines. So it could be a collection of line. I'm going to go ahead and give this line a white fill and stroke. Actually, I'm going to take the fill away and just give it a white stroke. It doesn't matter what I put in this space, even if the circles were missing, it's still going to communicate order, right? So you might have to move a few of them up if you move them irregularly, just to make sure they're all in the same line. I'm going to do Command G to group them together. And I'll do the same here. So if I'm working with multiple figures and I want them to be connected, I Command G. I'm going to do the same thing for the last one. If you do it one time and you copy, so if I copy, I do Command G and I copy it, it will keep it grouped together the entire time. So even though I made it already, I grouped the first one before I chose to move them. So then you have your order. Now rhythm is a little bit different. So rhythm is a pattern that repeats more than 3 times. So the rhythm I've set up here is large circle, 3 small circle, large circle, 3 small circle, large circle. So the box or the container of the rhythm is the first line, and then I'm using the grid to repeat that. Other options is you can have an alternating rhythm or a rhythm that is not the same every time, a little bit different each time. So I'll leave a little bit of space. And again, if I just hold down shift and option and repeat it and command D, now I have my rhythm. Okay, now I have my rhythm. I'm going to talk about radial and then spiral. Radial is a little bit easier and spiral takes a little bit more time. So let's go easy and then progressively get harder. So radial is super fun. It's one of my favorite tools. A couple things about radial compositions is that you want to pull the apex away from the center. So no one gets confused about it maybe possibly being a centered composition. And we all know what how important it is to try other things. So I'm going to repeat that same thing where I hold down shift and option and repeat and command D to duplicate that last movement that I had. I'm going to go a couple more so it doesn't look like it's crammed into the sides. I also will have to move this artboard over just a little bit for the next step. So I'm just going to move it and give myself some space. Oh, before I move it, let's go ahead, unlock. Now I can move it and then make sure I lock that layer back. So I made this series and I'll repeat that. I made a triangle. I drag the triangle, start moving the triangle, hold down option and shift or alt and shift on your map, on your PC. So option shift or alt shift. I'm going to duplicate it. Shift keeps it at 90 degree, 45 degree angles. Command D. And I'm just going to go a couple past it. Now I'm going to take this collection and I'm just going to group it together in my quick actions. And I'm going to use the rotate tool. So when I select the rotate tool right here in the center of that line, there's the apex, where it's going to spin. And I'm actually going to single click here. I'm going to move, hold down Option. You see it repeats, release, Command D, and it will repeat that. Now, for the one I created, I wanted an additional set of emphasis. And so make sure I place that apex in the center of the radial, hold down Option, duplicate, and I'm going to actually change this to just be gray with no fill. Okay, so gray with no fill. Go back to rotate, shortcut key R, and you see my apex is already here. So I'll go ahead, spin, start to spin. I'm not releasing the mouse. I hold down Option first, see, get the duplicate up there. Then I release the mouse, and then Command D will duplicate that choice. When I'm all finished, I'm going to place a clipping mask. So this is for radial. Command -sign to zoom out. And again, you can do this with any figure. My expectation is that you pick something more exciting than circles. Once I have that all selected, I'm going to go to the selection tool, select everything, rubber band select, object, clipping mask, make. So now I have, oh, my mask is a little bit off, and it's okay because I can go in and fix it really quickly. Just making sure that I'm sticking to the template. And shortcut key for clipping mask, Command 7. So now I have my radial composition, and you just want to pull that apex of the radial away from the center. So let's talk about spiral. So things that are important to understand about spiral is that there has to be a growth pattern. It has to be go from large to small, with the emphasis being the spiraling in and then the moving out for radial. So the pushing out for radial and then the spiraling in. How I created this spiral is I started with two shapes, and the first is larger than the second, but I made the first one have a thicker stroke and the second one to have a thinner stroke. So making sure the second one I've had, I'm going to work with the blend tool. So I'll select the blend tool, shortcut key W. I want it to have specific steps. I chose 40, but depending on your scale or your shape, you might choose something different. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click from the small to the large. Oh, I think I'm missing a stroke. That's what's going on for this one. There we go. And let's try this again. Blend tool from the small to the large. There we go. So now you have a set of shapes. They're ready to go. You're going to go in and use the spiral tool. So I'm going to use the spiral tool, making it about the size of the paper and then rotating a little bit. Now it's okay. I don't want you to feel like you have to squish everything in to the picture plane. If you want to go a little bit out, it's okay, because the shape is going to fill in that space. Once you have your spiral and your set of shapes, you're going to select both of them and go to Object, Blend, Replace Spline. Now I have my big on the top and my center, so you're free to leave it like this. You might also go in and try blend, reverse spine front to back. So you might, depending on the shapes that you have, decide one is better or more appropriate than the other. So I would play with those equally. So I'm actually going to make my clipping mask here. I'm going to just hit D, and then I'll move it because I really couldn't see the square. So I'll move it into the corner there. Select all of it, Object, clipping mask, make. So now I have my spiral and my radial. So those are some tools to how you can begin your assignments for today. So what you'll do today is very similar to the process before. You will make thumbnail compositions, movement plus change, order rhythm, and spiral or radial. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up in we're in unit 3 composition. If we look up assignments, oops, I don't want to make a new document. Here is the composition direction. So you'll go to composition directions. So for today, you will be making your next set of compositional strategies. So you'll have 6 thumbnails to make. You'll choose between radial or spiral, and then you'll make an two order rhythm thumbnails, 2 movement plus change thumbnails, and then we'll progress like we've been doing, where you make your first and your second and your third iterations, and the time frames for those are present. So I look forward to seeing your compositions, and let me know if you have any questions.